Hi and welcome back. This is Milton Shupe and we're talking about Gmax 1.2 for the beginning modeler. This is video number 39, the third in the series of our introduction to UVW mapping or texture mapping. So this is part 3 of this 3-part mini-series. In the last video, we spent time talking about material IDs or assigning groups of polys to selection groups, also called material IDs. And that's kind of the hard work that we got through already. You may remember that we assigned the left side to group 1, the right side to group 2. I can smooth, there we go. And the top to selection group 3, the bottom to 4. You can see that there. And then the rest of the areas, well, the nose cap to 5, the engine cap back here to 6, cockpit to 7, nose gear bay 8, and the pilot entry exit door walls to 9. So now that we've done all the hard work, and by hard work that's exactly with respect to what you go through in texture mapping, that's exactly where the hard work is, where the busy work is, I should say. It's not all that hard. It's just you have to be meticulous, and you have to be careful, and you have to verify and validate and make sure everything is as you want it to be before we proceed with the actual mapping. So with that done, I did notice a while ago that we have 3 selection errors right here on either side if you look at both selection ID 1 and selection ID 2. Those 6 polys right there belong in selection group 3 up here. So I'm glad I ran into that. I can show you how we correct those kinds of issues while we're right here. So let's kind of zoom in with the region zoom. And let's just use our select and do no damage tool. Come up here, ignore back facing is selected. So we can just select these 6, and you'll notice down here that there's no ID showing. That means that there's more than one ID assigned to one or more of these polys. So all of these polys need to be selection ID 3. So we're going to put a 3 there and press enter. Now let's go select ID 3. And there you go. Ties in beautifully. I'm going to select 1. Let's see what we look like over there. Ties in beautifully with that. Select ID 2, or I'm sorry, 2 for the right side, or the left side actually, left side of the aircraft, on the right side of the screen. So that error is fixed and we're good to go. So what I hope to share in this video in the last of the 3 parts is now actually how we take all that work and apply those selection groups of polygons to a UVW map. And when you think UVW map, you can also think texture sheet in this case, and get a texture sheet generated, and ultimately then we'll bring that back into Gmax and apply it to the series of parts based on the fuselage. So in other words, we want to generate one of these and pull it into LithUnwrap to validate that everything's kosher, and then we'll have LithUnwrap save this as a bitmap of an appropriate size, and that will look like this when we're done. Remember, this is the selection group 1, the right side of the aircraft, selection group 2, 3, 4. The nose cap was 5. This back of the engine section is 6, and then we had 7 for the cockpit, 8 for the one of these, and 9 for one of these. So I'm going to walk you through now how we go about getting to this point. So once you get to this point, she's ready for the texture artist, because ultimately, when you get all the mapping done of all the aircraft, we hope to end up with something like this I showed you in the last video. This is the fuselage area that we're mapping. We're getting ready to map now. So we're only a few minutes away of having this fuselage and its associated parts mapped for textures applied, and ready for painting. So since we've done all the hard work, the mapping itself turns out to be relatively easy. It's just a matter of applying some things to the stack here, and selecting the groups we've already set up, applying the UVW map, and when we get done, we'll have a whole stack of these, at least one for each group, and some of them will have 2 or 3 because they have 4 sides or whatever, and we need to map all 4 sides so that they can receive textures in a proper way. Okay, so we're going to learn how to use the poly select, and then use the material ID selection that we set up to select a pre-assigned group of polys, and then apply a UVW map, and then we'll learn how to size that map so that it's consistent through for getting these polys onto a bitmap across this particular part of the project, as well as the wings and the tails and so forth. Then we'll learn how to orient that properly in order to get it properly on the bitmap, and position the UVW Gizmo. When you think UVW Gizmo, think of the texture sheet correctly, so that we can move the selected polys wherever we want on that texture sheet. Then we'll export all of that mapping to LithUnwrap to check it out, and if it's good, we will save a texture template as a bitmap, and then come back to Gmax, create a new material, open that new bitmap, and assign to the mapped parts we just completed here. And once we have that, then that bitmap will show up on these parts, and every poly should be covered. And then once that's in place, we can make other minor modifications to the material values. Material is just a group name for one or more textures or bitmaps that you're using to apply to your project, and it also has other values associated with it. So it's kind of a high order texture map, if you will, but it allows you to have multiple texture maps and assign values like transparency or specular lighting or what have you to that material, and that material carries through all the textures that may be a part of this. In this case, we're only using one texture in the material, so it's pretty simple. And once we have all that done, I will also show you how to merge other mappings into the fuselage map. We may recall from the previous video we had some unused real estate there. Well, we'd like to use it all up, and in this case I have previously mapped the canopy, so I'll show you how to merge that canopy mapping onto the fuselage map when we get it done. Now, just a caveat here, there's a lot of methods for doing the preparation and doing the mapping. Everybody does it a little bit differently, and that's fine. What I'm going to show you is the way I do it for FS9. It's simple, it's fast, it's highly accurate, and that's why I've stuck with it for 14 years. So, with that said, why don't we get started? I will mention that I'm going to post, or I am posting, links down below to give you access to other UV mapping techniques. There's one that was done by a friend of mine called Hairyspin, that's his handle. That's available over on FS Developer, and there's also a link that you can hit that over at Sim Outhouse. And I also am providing links to LithUnwrap, which we use here, and Quake 3, which we use to export our mapping to get it to LithUnwrap. They're two small applications, very powerful, very helpful to give you pixel perfect texture application to your project. So that's what we want always, pixel perfect. Alright, with that said, let's get started. So we now have all the parts selected of the fuselage and its attached parts that close it in or make up the exterior fuselage. So with all of them selected, we are ready to take advantage of all the work we did in assigning these polys to selection groups and get them on a texture map. So how do you go about doing that? It's really just a series of adding two of these things to the stack for each of those selection groups. So let's get started with a poly select. Now you may not have these up here. These I've modified, customized mine for easy access. But if you get the drop down panel, you come down to poly select, that's where you'll find it. So you can select it there. And once you have it in the stack, we're saying, okay, I want to select poly. So let's go down and start with the right side, which is selection ID number 1. So let's select that, and boom, remember that work we did to set that up? This is where it pays off. So boom, that's done. I'm ready to actually put that on a texture sheet. So I'm going up and hit the UVW map, or for you, it's probably going to find that down here under UV coordinate modifiers, UVW map. Okay, there we have the UVW map. Now, in order to map this, we have to be in the right viewport for the section we're mapping. So we're mapping right side and need to be in the right viewport. The first thing we do is, when we get this UVW map in, is select the gizmo. Think of the gizmo as your texture sheet. So we need to align that texture sheet so that we can see it straight on, just like you're looking at the texture sheet. So let's do a view align here. View align. Okay, that's the right view. We can do a bitmap fit if you'd like. When you see this fit around here, you know that your parts, all of your parts in the scene, are in good shape. They've not been scaled. They don't need their scales reset or anything like that. When it fits like this, you know you're good to go. Now, the next thing we need to do, remember we talked about sizes that we were going to map to. We're going to map to 11 meters. So we key in length and width 11 meters. So now we have a square UVW map gizmo, and you can equate that to your texture sheet, if you will. Now keep in mind with UVW gizmos, this handle means this is the top of your texture sheet, or the UVW map, and the green is the right side. I don't mean the correct side, I mean the right side versus the left side. Okay, so if you think about this as your texture sheet, and using the gizmo here, we can move these polys anywhere we want on this texture sheet. Well, if you think back to this sheet, this is the way we're going to lay it out. This is kind of my target. Right side, left side, top, bottom. Number 5 group, which is the nose cap, the engine group, which is the tail, and then the cockpit area, and then the nose gear bay, and the pilot entry exit. So we just go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. So that's the way we're going to do this mapping. So we're going to start at the bottom of this texture sheet, if you will. So let's just move this to the bottom. Pull in the gizmo up. And you can actually get down here pretty tight. If you look in, we got quite a bit of distance remaining there. We want to give the texture artist a little room to work there, so don't get it too tight. Give them some freedom to work, but we don't want to waste too much space either. So there we have the selection group 1, the right side of the fuselage, mapped. It's on the texture sheet. It's at the bottom, so we're done with that. So you click on UVW mapping. When you see the green, you know that's no longer active. So we're ready to do selection group number 2. So let's go. We know number 2 is the left side of the aircraft. Let's go to the left side, add a poly select. I'm going to shortcut here and use my own setup, but you can go to the drop down and get it. Turn on the poly subobject mode. Come down to select material ID, and we'll roll that up to 2. And boom, there's our selection group number 2 series of polys. So we're just going to add a UVW map, and we're going to select a gizmo, and now we need to orient it, view a line, fit it. Looks good. We come up here to length width and pull in our 11 meter size. Okay, same size we used previously, and you have to use the same size throughout. Okay, so now we've got number 2 done, and we're going to move that down on top of the other selection about there. Don't want to be too tight, we might overlap it, and that's okay if you do. You can always go back and change it. So 2 is done. So now we're ready for 3. Let's see how fast this is going, because we already did all the hard work. So I'll do selection group 3. Let's go to top view and add a UVW map modifier. Okay, now we need to ensure that we have it view aligned, fitted, and then we'll correct the size to 11 by 11. Getting the hang of this now. Okay, and now we want to move this down on top of the 2 that are already here. Well, how are we going to do that? Well, we need to rotate it. So let's rotate this. Which way do we need to rotate it? We need the nose to the left. So we need to rotate this so the nose goes around to the left side of that. Okay, we're watching the Z thingy down at the bottom, Z coordinate. So we're right on 90. We're good to go. So let's slide this down on top of the other. Yeah, somewhere in there. Should be good. And we're done with that. We're done with 3. So let's go to the bottom, because we're fixing to do fixing. Do you hear that? That's Texas talk. We're going to go to selection group 4, which is the bottom group of polys. Add a UVW map. We're going to select the gizmo. We're going to come down to the bottom here, do a view align, and we're going to do a fit. Then we're going to correct the size to the size we're using, which is 11 meters. And then we're going to have to rotate this, and we want to rotate this just to double check. Oops, wrong one. Same way, nose to the left. So let's just rotate the nose the other way to get it on the left-hand side here. And we're looking at 90 degrees down on the Z-axis. There we have 90. And then we're going to move this down to about there. Don't want to get too tight. Okay. So 4 is done. What's next? 5, the nose cap. So let's go up and add a poly select. We're stacking these up here in the command panel. We're building our stack. Now, a lot of people will go ahead and collapse these, but I usually have to tweak this a little bit, so I leave them open until I'm happy with the bitmap selections, whatever. So we're just going to build up the stack. We're going to front view here, K key, and we're going to, we like the selection, of course. We're going to add a UVW map. Select the gizmo, slide to the bottom, do a view align, fit, looks good. Now we're going to correct the length to 11. I know it's starting to get monotonous. It's the same thing, but it gets more interesting here in a minute. Hang on. Okay, now we're going to move this down someplace out of the way. I put it down in the corner before. It's as good a place as any. It's probably more appropriate over here on the side somewhere. We can do that too, just to be different. We're going to slide it down here somewhere between these noses, hopefully. Okay, 5 is done. Let's do 6. Alright, select 6. This will be at the back of the aircraft, back in the engine section. So hit the F key, and there we have 6, looking good. Add a UVW map, select the gizmo, do a view align. You can see how quickly this goes when you have all that selection process done and behind you. You don't have to worry about it anymore. You know it's right when you come to the step, so it's just zip, zip, zip. Well, for the most part, anyhow. Alright, so we've got it fitted. Let's change the size to 11 meters. Okay, we've got that. And we're going to move that over here to the left somewhere in the vicinity of just north of halfway up this bitmap. So we'll go over here and slide it up the bitmap a little bit to make sure we're out of the way of everything. Okay, 6 is done, so now it starts to get a little more difficult to do because we have selections by hand to do now. 7 is the cockpit, so let's go to top view. This is the cockpit floor, and all the sides are actually selected too. Now you can't just apply a texture to that because all these vertical sides would just be stretched textures and would not look right. So I'll show you how to map all the sides. So top view, E for zoom, and let's apply the map. Get the map in place, and we'll view align and fit, and then correct the size to 11 meters. Alright, and let's see where we put that, just above on the right side. Yeah, just above center on the right hand side. So alright, let's go back here, slide this over, and bring it up a little bit. And what's the Y on that, just out of curiosity? 1073. Alright, now we're going to go back, and what we need to do here is, because these are all in the same selection group, we're going to deselect what we just mapped by holding down the Alt key. We still have more parts of number 7 here that we want to map, like the sides and the front and rear. So let's go to the sides now from the right view. Now we can't see anything, but if you press F3 to get you in wireframe mode, now you can see those sides. So let's put a UVW map on that. Excuse me. Select Gizmo, go to the bottom, do a view align and a fit. That looks good. Now let's select length and width, 11 meters, and bounce on here so we can see it. Now let's slide this over to about there, and then go up like we did the other one, and hopefully that'll be fine. Alright, and then go to the next step. We'll get the front and rear, but first we have to deselect these because we already mapped them, right? So now we should have just the front and rear of the cockpit left. Yeah, so we can just go to the rear of the aircraft, hit the F key and the E to zoom in. We just map both of those panels from the rear. Now, since this is actually the cockpit, once I get into building the virtual cockpit, I actually remap these, so not a big deal, but I wanted to show you how to deal with situations like this. So we'll go ahead and map them anyhow, because everything needs to have a texture assigned to it before it goes to flight sim, or it can cause you issues. So let's get the gizmo set. So let's view align, fit, looks good. Go up to length, width, give it 11 meters. 11 meters it is. And then we need to get it up there where the last two were put, somewhere in this vicinity. And number 7 is done. So now we can move on to number 8. So let's do a poly select. Come down here and select 8. And what are we mapping here? This appears to be the nose gear bay. Okay, kind of the same deal here, except we're going to only have to do 2 maps here. We're going to do the top surface, and then we'll do the walls. We won't mess with the front rear. Frankly, in this particular aircraft, you can't see any of this stuff anyhow, except maybe just a little bit of the edges, because the doors usually stay closed. So we'll go ahead and map this from the bottom first, and select the gizmo. Same routine as you're going through this, with the only differences being when we have to do 2 or 3 maps on a particular selection group. Let's see, did I do the view line, fit? There we go. Then we'll set the length and width of the gizmo. So we have a square texture sheet here. And let's see, where did we put those bad boys before? Right here in the center. So we're going to rotate this and put it right up against the top center of this texture sheet. So it doesn't really matter which way you rotate it unless it's related to other things that you're doing. So just rotate that around to 90 degrees. And that just makes it easier for the texture artist when you do things properly like that. So we'll zoom in here and see, take a little bit more, I guess. Yeah, that's good. Okay, so we've got that part. Let's go get the rest of it now. Let's see, let's go to the right. Now, before we do that, we have to deselect. We have to open the doors to do this. So before we deselect, we need to make sure we ignore back faces, so we don't want to affect anything else. Okay, we got the ceiling that we mapped. We got that out of the selection. So we'll do the, really can't see the front and back here, so we're going to do it from the side. We'll just throw the side in there and we'll be done with that part. We're rocking. Okay, so let's roll to the bottom here. If your screen were bigger, I'd have to keep this small for the video. All this stuff could show, so you don't have to be rolling back and forth. So we're going to view a line, fit, and then scroll up to hit 11 meters on the length and width. And that part's done. So this is oriented properly, so we can just bring this up underneath the other part there. And that part's done. That selection group is done. So we can move on to our last selection group, which is going to be 9. Okay, and we'll go to bottom view, just like we did before. And it really doesn't matter, just whatever your preference is. This is an easier one to take off, and a few clicks and you got this one cleared, so you can do the sides. So roll to the bottom here, view line, fit. Let's go ahead in our proper length and width, 11 meters, and zoom out. Now, where do we put this? Top left, right? Or top left, correct? Okay, top left corner is where we want this, and then need to rotate it. So let's rotate this bad boy around this way, 90 degrees. watching the Z-axis as I search for it. There we go. We're going to push this to the edge and roll it up to the top corner. That's okay for the demonstration here. We'll add one more poly select and zoom in here to deselect these polys we already mapped. They have to be careful here and not select anything else I don't want to select. Okay, so all I have are sidewalls now, so we're just gonna rock that in with another UVW map and view align, fit. Starting to get the hang of this, I bet. 11, 11. Okay, so we got that bad boy done. We'll rock it over here to the left and roll it up here in the neighborhood. And guess what? We just finished mapping all of those 3,945 polys. Now, let's figure out how well we did. We have all those polys and all those selection groups mapped to the texture sheet. So we're going to export this now. Export selected. And we're going to export this actually to, let's see, X54, XP54, and an MD3V for video. We got to save it as file type Quake3 MD3, and I gave you a link to download that application so you could do this kind of export. And you'll see that I've been here before, so here's the fuselage. So we're just going to double click that, and yes, I want to replace it. And all you ever have to put in this following frames is 0, and that's the only thing you have to do with the screen. Just put a 0 and say export. And you may get these messages, they're okay, you can ignore them. Okay, so we have that exported. I heard that before. Alright, so let's open LithUnwrap. And we're going to open this model, open. And we're going to open what we just exported there, fuselage. See what we got. There's what we got. Kind of a mess. Actually, it all looks good in that there are no unassigned polys. There's no wild lines running around here, so everything looks good, except we got a little bit of overlap here. Or at least I think it's overlap. Let's zoom in and look. It may not be, but it's too close for the texture artist to be happy with. So we're going to move the top number 3 down, and everything else is okay here. And notice we got some overlap here on these parts. So this is the second map in the cockpit section. So we're going to have to move this over, and we may be able to squeeze it in there, but to be safe, I'll move this over a little bit as well. So we have 2 corrections to make, and that's fine. Sometimes you have to do this back and forth because you're kind of doing this by your mind's eye. So let's go back and correct that, and then we'll re-export it and see what kind of job we did. So we're going to do the move the top down towards the bottom. What is that? Selection group 3 down towards the bottom, about the half the width or so of that, and then we'll move the cockpit. What is that? This was the floor. Oh, this was the sidewalls. Okay. All right, so let's go do that. So how do we do that? We scroll back down to the bottom of the stack here. Remember, the first stack was the right side, selection group 1. The second was the left side, selection group 2. The third group, assuming I'm on it here, is here. Selection group 3, you can see it there. So I needed to move this down a little bit, so let's go to the top and look at it. And I needed to move it down to the bottom of the sheet, about half the width there, but we just go a little bit to be safe. Okay, this is 4. What am I looking for? Cockpit. Where am I? Selection group 6, that's the back. Selection group 7, there it is. So this part was okay. It was the next part. This part, the walls. I needed to move it to the left and up, so let's do that. Move it to the left a little. Wait a minute, is that 6? Let's back up here. Let's undo that move. Like 7, 6, 5, 6, 7. It should be 7. It is 7. Okay. Just want to be sure I was right. Oh, that was... Not sure why it's displaying that way, but... Okay, this was the floor. Select. Okay, this is the floor. Sorry, got me confused here. Make sure I'm doing the right thing. Selection group 6 is in the back. Selection group 7 is there. This is the floor. So where's my... This is floor. That one was okay. So I need the next one, which is the sides. And that one we needed to move to this way a little bit. We needed to move it up a little bit. Let's make sure a little bit is enough. Okay. And just to be safe, we're going to 7, this was front rear is the way we mapped that. I want to move that a little bit further to the left to make sure I have enough room to squeeze that other move in there. Okay, that should correct everything. So we're back to the top of the stack. We're going to re-export that to fuselage. Give it a 0 there. Say OK to that. Now we're going to reopen the model. A lot of clicking here. Okay, we got that moved down. Good. What happened to my other parts here? I don't know. They disappeared. Go back and take a look. Let's see. It's like I lost the selection. That's 4. That's 5. That's 6. That's 7. Oh. That's everything. Okay. So this should be... it's playing games with me here, folks. Oh, it's because I had deselected them. It's, I guess. Go back to the top. Is this the top map? Yes, it is the top map. So I guess it shows selected here. Where am I? For some reason that went away. Anyhow, you get the point. You have to shuffle those around. I'm running short on time here, so I have to buzz along. So we've got this map looking the way we want it to look, except for a little missing parts right there. And we're ready to then create a template. So what we do here is go to UVW Map, Save. And we're going to save this in a folder I put in called UVW. And call it fuselage. Okay, so now we have a texture map. Let's go see if we can. Yeah, that's it. And notice we're missing those 2 parts on here, so that's the current one. Okay, so it's going to show up a little funky because of that, but that's good. We understand what's going on. Alright, so with everything selected here, we are now ready to bring that bitmap in that we saved. And how do we do that? We have to create a material. We're going to say new. We open the material editor. We select new. We want a standard material. And it opens up the material editor deal here. Now we need to go find that bitmap. What you do to do that is come down here to ambient and diffuse. They both use the same bitmap, which is the bitmap we're after. If you click on this button here, it opens up this material navigator page, and you just select bitmap, twice, double click on me, and it opens up a browser so you can go find it. So let's see if we can go find it. We're looking in this folder. This is where I saved it. And we're looking in UVW, and there's the fuselage map we generated. So we're going to open that, and it brings it in. You can see it represented here. And now with all of our parts selected, we can go ahead and apply it. We need to hit F3 to get back in skin mode. And let's kind of zoom in on it here a little bit. Now you can't see it. Why can't I see the bitmap? Because this box right here, if this video wasn't playing, that would show you the tooltip. It says view in, or show in viewport. So if I click that, you can see now we have it. There's one other setting I want to just tell you about while we're right here on the top part of this, and that's specular level. Specular level is like showing the effects of sunshine on your fuselage. So you, depending on the angle of the sun, you'll see a little bit of sun glare highlight on the fuselage from whatever angle the aircraft is to the sun. So default on that is 0. I usually use 35 to 37, and you'll see that it actually brightens up this map and it brightens up that when let's undo that. If you watch one of these two or both and redo it, you'll see that it brightened it up. It kind of gives you the effect of sunshine on it. And I usually use that for all my exterior textures. I use a 37. Okay, so let's close that. And let's get off of this and turn off edge faces so we can see this the best we can see it. And here you see we have, except for those missing parts that I screwed up on, the texture and the result of all of our hard work, not so hard, just meticulous, applied throughout. Remember, I said I didn't do all sides of this because of what they are, whatever. So these sides that look like there's nothing there, there's actually texture stretched on there. That will take a color, but it's not going to have detail like the sides that are properly mapped are. But kind of shortcutted that for you to save time. So there you have a properly textured set of parts. You remember we broke this at 45, and you can see as you get up in these angles from this planar projection that things start stretching up here, and that's why we have to map this on 4 different sides to minimize any stretching. Notice the lines down here don't have the same effect or the same width as they do on this line, where remember we put 3 rows of polys on either side of the top. So this is where the top and the sides come together right on that line there, and you kind of see the effect that those are a little bit different, not as clear and crisp as these others. But you really don't see a lot of difference in the sim, but if you were doing lettering, and the texture artist was doing lettering, he might experience and have to adjust for a little bit of stretching on this topmost poly line here. So, but that's the game in which we play. So everything looks good here. We have a good texture map. Now, with that said, I wanted to show you how to merge another set of mappings onto this texture sheet. So I have a canopy out there that I mapped for this aircraft. So let's go to model. Instead of open, we're going to do a merge. And let's select that fuselage canopy that I've done previously. Open that and import it, and it places it right there because that's where I mapped it on the sheet. So now we have that included on the sheet once we save the sheet, of course. Save. And yes, there. Save. Yes. And also notice I saved it as a 2048 for the texture artist, even though what he sends me back, or what I put in the sim, will be a 1024 by 1024. Okay, so that's how you do the merge. So you've learned how to do that in LithUnwrap. Okay, So now we're booking. We're hooking it. We're making some good progress. Now you know how to map, so you just proceed the same way, essentially, with your wings, your tails, your boom, etc. For those other parts, like wheels and whatever that you may already have textures with, well, that's a little different ball game. You just assign those textures to it, and then slide your map over the part until that texture is applied. You may have to scale it up and down for a proper fit, but that's where we are, boys and girls. We've done good. Let's see, we're into this 45 minutes now. A lot of talking, a lot of explaining, but we're good on size. Remember that this is my method. There's lots of different ways of doing texture mapping, and there's a way to do it in Gmax that's, I guess, just as effective, but in order to get pixel perfect texture templates like this, what most people do is use Gmax to do all the work, and then they will export their result from their UVW-Unwrap process. Once they get all that stuff placed where they want it, then they'll export the parts to LithUnwrap to create their pixel perfect texture sheet, and then bring it back in just the way we did. So that process is a little different, but I put a couple links down to go visit some other methods for doing texture mapping that you might like as well, and may be better in the long run. I'm just happy with this. It goes fast for me, and so I'm sticking with it. But do keep in mind that there's lots of ways of mapping and a lot of different techniques out there. I just find this one easy, quick, accurate, and I stick with it. I can actually map this whole aircraft in about 4 hours, probably, maybe less than that, because I don't have engine nacelles. I could probably do it in 2.5 to 3 hours. So, once you get proficient at it, it goes pretty quickly. So that's what we wanted to achieve in this, to show you how to use. Let's show you how to use the tools to get this bad boy mapped, so that you can move on to the next level. After this, obviously, we would go on and map the wings, the booms, and the tails, what have you, and then we would end up with something that looks like this. And once you're happy with that and it looks good in the sim, if you have a texture artist or painter that's doing the work for you, you just ship off these templates along with the aircraft setup and let them get to work while you're focusing on other things, be it flight model or panel gauges or what have you. So I hope this has been informative and instructional and worthwhile. It's certainly a technique that works well for me and has worked for 14 years. I hope it works for you. But always be open-minded. Once you get your head around this, you can always look at other techniques and other capabilities. And when you get into Max, there's a lot more. So if you ever go to 3ds Max, a lot more capabilities. But we're just getting started. We want to get off on the right foot and try to keep things kind of easy here and basic for you, because I don't want you stumbling and falling by the wayside. Okay, guys. Thanks for joining, and any comments, put them down below, and I'll check you out on the next video. Have a good day.